Welcome to Mishna study Masechet Shevi'it Perek Zayin Mishnah Zayin. Last Mishnah of the Perek. Over here in this Mishnah, we're going to discuss a very important principle when it comes to all laws of mixing, right? So we have things that are batel, right? So two things got mixed together, right? Is that mixture now is it kosher? Is it not kosher? Is it Shevi'it? If it mixed with non-Shevi'it, something that's non-Shevi'it, is that considered Shevi'it or is it not Shevi'it? Right? We have things, this principle applies as well, as we'll see, to also basar b'halav, right? If milk fell into meat, right? What are the laws? Or if wine, yain nesech, fell into other wine, what are the laws when it comes to all these mixtures? So our Mishnah opens up with vered hadash. If you have a new rose, shekivasho b'shemen yashan, right? So if you have a rose new, meaning it's this year's rose, so it's Shevi'it, a rose that's Shevi'it, and it got mixed in with last year's oil. Now, the rose itself is a Shevi'it rose, but the oil is from the 6th year. Now, does that turn the whole oil into a Shevi'it mixture? So we just say, just pull the rose out, and the oil is fine. The oil doesn't turn into Shevi'it oil. Why? Because we have a concept, en shumonikar. There's no essence of that rose that made it. There's no flavor that made it into the oil. Why? Because it's a new rose. But let's say it would be ashan. Let's say you had an older rose, right? If you had a rose that was older, then it gives off a flavor. It gives off a taste. So let's say you had the rose that was from again, the rose was a 7th year rose, but you're mixing it with what? With oil of the following year, or there's the 1st year, Motzei Shevi'it's oil. So in this case, that rose gives off a flavor to the oil because it's an older rose. It's more of a flavorful, and therefore it's hayav biur. Now this oil turns into Shevi'it oil, and the oil itself now you need to get rid of, right? At the time of biur, you have to finish it, consume it, whatever it may be. Now haruvim hadashim shekivashan beyain yashan vishanim behadash hayavim bebiur. When it comes to carob is very flavorful. It gives off a flavor right away, even if it's new. So if you went ahead and you soaked it in wine, older wine, or if you took older carobs and you mixed it in new wine, either one, hayavim bebiur. Right? And Rambam explains why. Because haruvim beyain rishumo shel ta'am haruvim nikar bo miyad. Right? Again, the flavor of the carob is you could taste it, you could feel it right away. This is the rule. Kol shehu benoten ta'am hayav leva'ir min b'she'eno mino. Right? So if it's two different items, it's not the same item. It's not wine that mixed with wine. Right? You have like the examples we brought. If you have a carob that fell into wine, right? That's one item into another. Right? Then hayav leva'ir, you have to get rid of it, right? It takes on, the flavor gave off, and therefore the whole thing becomes Shevi'it, and you need to consume it or finish it by the end time. Umin b'mino, now when it comes to, let's say wine, right? Wine of Shevi'it that got mixed in with wine of Shishit, of the 6th year, right? Even a drop in a massive bucket, kolshu, any amount. Right? This is interesting. Okay, Shevi'it oseret kol shu b'mina, shelo b'mina b'noten ta'am. Right? The laws when it comes to Shevi'it is it makes something asur. Right? If it's for the same item, wine fell into wine, 6th year wine fell into 7th year wine, then right, the whole thing becomes asur, right? Because it's the same mean, it's the same item. But if it's two different items, right? If a carob fell into wine, then it depends if it gave flavor or did not give flavor. Now, what's interesting is the law of noten ta'am is consistent across everything, right? If you have milk that fell into meat, right? You're going to go ahead and figure if it gave flavor or didn't give flavor, right? You have all the laws of two separate items. You have to figure out if it gave flavor to the item or did it not give flavor. But when it comes to min bemino, right? One item, wine that fell into other wine. So usually you'll say that it's batel in shishim, 1/60th, right? So if I had unkosher milk that fell into cow's milk, I need to figure out if there is 60, right? If it's less than 1/60th that fell in, then the whole thing will be kosher. And over here we're saying, min bemino, if Shevi'it wine fell into non-Shevi'it wine, it's asur with a drop. Why? Why is it an asur with a drop? And Harambam explains in the Mishna Torah, he explains the reasoning why, and it's because when we say it's asur when it comes to Shevi'it, it's not like it's forbidden forever. It's not like if you had a pot of, a jug full of milk, the whole milk's going to become, asur forever. So we say, okay, 1/60th is allowed. When it comes to wine of Shevi'it, we're not going to make the whole Shevi'it wine asur forever. You just need to finish it by a certain date. You need to finish it by the time the grapes are still in the field. So therefore, Hachamim were, again, mahmir over here to say, if a drop fell in, because there is something you can do with it, practically speaking, you could go ahead and still drink it, right? So it's davar sheyesh lo heter, davar sheyesh lo matirim. You're allowed to drink it right now. So therefore we say, if any amount falls in, the whole thing becomes Shevi'it, right? So to sum up, when it comes up to the laws of Shevi'it, if you have two separate items, a rose that fell into oil, carob that fell into wine, it depends if they gave off flavor or not, right? If it gave off flavor, it's going to be Shevi'it. When it comes to two of the same items, right, Shevi'it wine that fell into non-Shevi'it wine, any amount is going to make it all of it Shevi'it, and that is because you're still allowed to drink it at this point, but you just need to get rid of it and consume it by the end date.